The letter wasn't asking. It was demanding. Full custody. Immediate transfer. Filed by a man who vanished years ago. Before the birth, before the struggle, before any of it mattered. Every line revealed the truth. This wasn't about the child. It was about the billions attached to her name. What he didn't know was simple. Her father saw this coming and left instructions that would end him permanently. If you've ever watched someone use a child as leverage to steal what they didn't earn, you understand what happens next. Drop a comment right now. Tell me where you're watching from. Because this story proves that some battles are won before they even start. The envelope arrived on a Tuesday. Not certified. Not urgent. Just plain white paper slipped under the door while she was getting Naomi ready for preschool. She almost didn't notice it. By the time she did, Naomi was already strapped into her car seat, clutching her lunchbox, chattering about a class project involving butterflies and construction paper. The envelope stayed on the counter, unopened, forgotten, because mornings in their Connecticut townhouse followed a rhythm she'd built carefully over 3 years. Predictable, controlled, safe. Drop off at 8:15. Coffee at the corner shop where the barista knew her order. Groceries on Wednesdays. Library on Fridays. Quiet dinners where Naomi told stories that didn't always make sense, but always made her smile. This was the life her father had taught her to value. Not the one with noise. Not the one with attention. The one where you moved through the world without needing anyone to notice. He'd lived that way for decades. Worked quietly. Saved carefully. Spoke only when words mattered. When he died 5 years ago, he left behind a lockbox. Heavy. Sealed. Stored at a law firm in Hartford under instructions she didn't fully understand. "You'll know when it's time," the attorney had said at the reading of the will. She nodded, signed the paperwork, left it alone, because her father had taught her something else too. Don't open doors unless you're ready for what's behind them. That lockbox had stayed closed, untouched, waiting. She didn't think about it most days. Life had settled into something manageable. Naomi was thriving. Work was steady. The past felt distant enough to ignore. Until the envelope. She opened it that night after Naomi was asleep. It wasn't handwritten. It wasn't personal. It was legal. Formal. Cold. Notice of custody petition. She read the heading twice before her brain processed what it meant. Custody. Her ex-husband, who hadn't seen Naomi since she was 3 months old, was filing for custody. Not visitation. Full custody. Her hands went numb. She sat down at the kitchen table, reading through the document line by line, trying to make sense of words that didn't belong in her life. Petitioner seeks full physical and legal custody of minor child. Respondent's current living situation deemed unsuitable. Concerns regarding emotional stability and parenting capacity. The language was careful, calculated, designed to sound reasonable. But she knew better. This wasn't about Naomi. This was about something else entirely. Because 3 years ago, when her father's estate finally settled, the truth had come out. Not publicly, not loudly, but enough people knew. Her father, the man who'd worked maintenance jobs and lived in a modest apartment, had left behind a fortune no one expected. Trusts, investments, holdings across 6 states, and all of it structured to protect one person. Naomi. Her daughter's name sat at the center of a financial web worth billions, managed by trustees, inaccessible to anyone except Naomi herself once she turned 25. No parent could touch it. No spouse. No one. Unless they had custody. Unless they had control. She stared at the petition, feeling her pulse in her throat. He hadn't called in 3 years. Hadn't asked about birthdays, school, health, Nothing. And now he wanted custody. The timing wasn't coincidence. 2 months ago, a business journal had published a profile on family trusts and generational wealth. Her father's estate had been mentioned, not by name, but by structure. Someone had connected the dots. And now this. She read the final line of the petition. Court date scheduled. 14 days from filing. 14 days. 2 weeks to respond to a fight she didn't start but couldn't afford to lose. Her phone sat on the table beside her. She could call the attorney, could start building a defense, could panic. Instead, she walked to the closet in the hallway where she kept things that didn't need daily access. Old tax returns, birth certificates, passports, and a single business card. Law firm in Hartford, the one holding the lockbox. She turned the card over in her hands. Her father had told her once, years before he got sick, that preparation wasn't about predicting the future. It was about being ready when the future finally arrived. She hadn't understood what he meant then. She did now, because the envelope that arrived this morning wasn't random. It was inevitable. And somewhere in that lockbox was a response her father had written long before today. She just had to be willing to open it. The attorney's office smelled like old wood and expensive leather. She sat across from Harold Brennan, the same man who'd managed her father's estate, the same man who'd handed her that lockbox 5 years ago and told her to wait. He wasn't waiting anymore. He called her the morning after she received the petition. Didn't ask if she'd seen it. Just said, "Come in today. Bring the filing." Now he sat behind his desk, reading through the custody petition with the kind of focus that made silence uncomfortable. She waited. Finally, he looked up. "This is worse than I thought." Her stomach dropped. Ow! He turned the document around so she could see the section he'd highlighted. Petitioner requests immediate temporary custody pending full hearing due to concerns about respondent's mental health and financial exploitation of minor child. He's not just asking for custody, Harold said quietly. He's asking for emergency removal. He wants Naomi taken from you now, before the hearing even happens. Her hands gripped the armrests. On what grounds? Instability, isolation, financial mismanagement. He paused. And he's bringing a witness. Who? Harold pulled out another document. A witness statement, signed and notarized. The name at the bottom made her chest tighten. Vanessa Hartley. She hadn't heard that name in years. Not since the affair. Not since the divorce. Not since Vanessa had stood beside him at the courthouse, holding his hand while the judge finalized the end of their marriage. She's claiming she observed your behavior during visitation exchanges, Harold continued. Says you were erratic, emotionally volatile, unfit. There were no visitation exchanges. He never came. That's the problem. She's lying, and she's doing it under oath. The room tilted slightly. This wasn't just a custody fight. This was coordinated. Harold leaned forward. He's not acting alone. Someone helped him draft this. Someone who knows exactly what language to use to make you look unstable without accusing you of anything criminal. Vanessa. Probably. But there's more. He slid another page across the desk. A financial analysis. Her father's trust. Naomi's inheritance. All laid out in detail. This petition doesn't mention love, Harold said. It doesn't mention school activities or bedtime routines or favorite foods. It mentions asset management, guardian authority, trust oversight. She read the highlighted section. Petitioner seeks authority to manage minor child's financial interests as legal guardian. There it was. The real reason. He didn't want Naomi. He wanted access. Can he get it? She asked quietly. Not legally. The trust is ironclad, but if he wins custody, he could tie this up in court for years. drain resources, make your life impossible. She looked at Harold. What do I do? He stood, walked to a safe built into the wall behind his desk, entered code. The door swung open. Inside was the lockbox. He placed it on the desk between them. Your father anticipated this. Her throat tightened. Ow. Because he knew your ex-husband, knew the kind of man he was. And 3 weeks before he died, he left me very specific instructions. Harold pulled out a key, unlocked the box. Inside were 3 items. A sealed envelope with her name on it, a USB drive, and a folder labeled Contingency Custody Threat. Her hand shook as she reached for the envelope. Harold stopped her. Before you open that, I need you to understand something. Your father didn't write this to comfort you. He wrote it to arm you. She nodded. He released her hand. She broke the seal. The letter inside was typed, single-spaced. No greeting, no warmth, just instruction. If this envelope has been unsealed, then you're no longer safe. Do not negotiate. Do not explain. Do not hesitate. Mercy belongs to healing, not to those who exploit it. Everything you need is in this box. Use it. She read it twice, then looked at Harold. What's on the drive? He didn't answer right away. Just press play on his laptop. The video filled the screen, and what she saw made everything clear. Her father hadn't just prepared a defense. He'd built a trap, and her ex-husband had just walked straight into it. The video was dated 3 weeks before her father died. The timestamp sat in the corner. The location stamp read, Hartford General Hospital, room 447. Her father's room. She recognized it immediately. The beige walls, the monitor beside the bed, the window overlooking the parking lot where she'd stood crying more times than she could count. But her father wasn't alone in the frame. Someone else sat in the visitor's chair. Her ex-husband. She hadn't known about this visit. He told her he couldn't make it. Work conflict. Couldn't get away. But here he was, sitting beside her dying father. And the conversation that followed made her blood turn cold. So, how much longer do they think you have? Her ex-husband's voice. Casual. Almost bored. Her father's response was weak, but steady. Weeks. Maybe less. That's rough. I'm sorry, man. A pause. Then, listen, I wanted to ask you something. About the estate. I know things are complicated, but when you're gone, what happens to everything? Does it go to her? Her father didn't answer right away. The silence stretched. Finally, why are you asking? Just curious. I mean, we have a kid together. Naomi's going to need support. I want to make sure she's taken care of. You haven't seen her in 8 months. Yeah, well, things have been busy, but I'm trying to be responsible here. If there's money coming, I want to make sure it's managed right. Her father's expression didn't change, but his voice did. There's no money coming to you. I'm not asking for me. I'm asking for Naomi. No, you're asking for access. A beat. Look, I'm just saying, if something's set up for her, I should be involved. I'm her father. You're her biological parent. There's a difference. Her ex-husband's face tightened. What's that supposed to mean? It means you don't get to disappear for months and then show up asking about inheritance. I'm not. Yes, you are. The video cut off. Harold stopped the playback. The room was silent. She couldn't breathe. There are 2 more recordings, Harold said quietly. Same pattern. He visited 3 times in the last month of your father's life. Never told you. Never stayed long. Just asked questions. About money. About access. She looked at the USB drive. Why did my father record this? Because he knew what was coming. He knew your ex-husband would wait until he was gone. Wait until you were vulnerable. And then come back with lawyers. Harold opened the folder labeled Contingency, Custody Threat. Inside were documents she didn't recognize. Financial records, travel logs, phone records, all time-stamped, all verified. Your father hired a private investigator 2 months before he died, Harold explained. Tracked your ex-husband's movements, his finances, his relationships. He pulled out a highlighted section. 3 weeks after your father passed, your ex-husband met with Vanessa. They've been in contact ever since. She stared at the dates. The pattern was undeniable. He's been planning this for years, Harold said, waiting for the right moment. And now that Naomi's trust is public knowledge, he thinks he can claim custody and control it. But he can't. He can't access the money. But he can make your life hell trying. Unless what? Harold handed her another document. A legal strategy memo, written in her father's handwriting. Bullet points. Clear. Direct. Let him file. Let him bring witnesses. Let him overreach. Then bury him with his own words. She read it 3 times. Her father hadn't left her a defense. He'd left her a blueprint for total destruction. He wanted you to let them think they were winning, Harold said. Because the further they go, the harder they fall. She looked at the letter again. Do not negotiate. Do not hesitate. Her father had spent his last weeks preparing for a fight she didn't even know was coming. Not because he wanted revenge, but because he knew she'd need permission. Permission to be ruthless. Permission to stop being nice to people who were never going to return the favor. She closed the folder, looked at Harold. What do I do? He smiled, grim but certain. Nothing. Let him walk into court thinking he has a case. Let Vanessa testify. Let them both commit to their lies under oath. And then we show the judge exactly who they are. She sat back in her chair. For the first time since the petition arrived, she didn't feel afraid. She felt ready. Because her father had taught her something she'd almost forgotten. Preparation wasn't about predicting the future. It was about controlling it. If you think preparation matters more than luck, you need to see what happens when someone underestimates a father's foresight. Stay with us, because this is just the beginning. The response deadline came and went. No motion filed. No counterpetition. No lawyer appearing on her behalf in the court docket. Her ex-husband's attorney called it a victory. She called it strategy, because while he celebrated what looked like surrender, Harold's team was doing something far more useful. They were listening. Every filing her ex-husband submitted gave them more material. Every witness statement Vanessa provided added another thread to unravel. Every confident claim made in legal paperwork created another contradiction to exploit later. Her father had written it clearly in his notes. Let them build the narrative. Let them commit to the details. Let them believe you're too weak or too broken to fight back. Then show them what preparation looks like. So she stayed quiet, didn't respond to the petition, didn't release a statement, didn't even hire a visible attorney. From the outside, it looked like she'd given up. From the inside, the case was being built piece by piece. Harold investigators pulled hospital records from the weeks her father was dying. Visitor logs, security footage, timestamps that showed exactly when her ex-husband had visited, and more importantly, when he hadn't. Because Vanessa's witness statement claimed she'd observed multiple custody exchanges during that time period. Exchanges that supposedly showed instability, erratic behavior, emotional breakdowns. But the records told a different story. There were no exchanges. Her ex-husband had visited the hospital 3 times. All of them logged. All of them brief. All of them focused on her father, not on seeing Naomi. In fact, the last time he'd seen his daughter was 8 months before her father died. Not during the illness, Not during the grief. Not during the so-called exchanges Vanessa described under oath. The timeline didn't just contradict her testimony. It obliterated it. Harold laid the documents out on his desk during their second meeting. "She's lying," he said flatly, "and she's doing it badly. Why would she risk that? Because she thinks no one's checking. She thinks you're too overwhelmed to fight back. And she thinks the court will believe her because she sounds credible." He pulled up another document. Travel records. Her ex-husband's credit card statements from the months Vanessa claimed to have witnessed these exchanges. He'd been out of state. Conferences. Work trips. A vacation to Miami that lasted 10 days. None of it aligned with the custody exchanges Vanessa described. "She's not just lying about what she saw," Harold continued. "She's lying about being there at all. So what do? Nothing. Let her testify. Let her commit to these dates under oath. Let your ex-husband stand beside her and confirm her story. And then..." Harold smiled. "Cold. Certain. Then we bury them with their own words." The preliminary hearing was scheduled for 2 weeks out. During that time, her ex-husband grew bolder. He filed an emergency motion requesting immediate temporary custody pending the full hearing. The argument was simple. Every day Naomi stayed with her mother was a day she was at risk. Risk of what? Exactly was never specified. Just vague language about emotional instability and concerning behavior. The kind of language designed to sound alarming without saying anything actionable. The judge granted a hearing on the motion. 48 hours notice. Her ex-husband's lawyer sent a triumphant email to Harold's office. "We look forward to presenting our case. We trust Ms. Brennan will finally engage with this process in good faith." Harold forwarded it to her with a single line. "They think they've already won." She read it twice. Felt something shift inside her chest. Not fear. Clarity. Because her father had been right about something else too. The most dangerous people aren't the loudest ones. They're the quiet ones who let you talk yourself into a corner before they say a single word. And she'd been very, very quiet. The evidence didn't arrive all at once. It accumulated. Financial records showing her ex-husband's income had dropped 40% in the past year. Credit card debt climbing into 6 figures. 2 loans taken out against his car. A third mortgage on a condo he'd bought with Vanessa before their relationship imploded. He was drowning, and the timing of the custody petition wasn't random. It came exactly 3 weeks after a financial news outlet published a feature on family trusts and generational wealth protection. The article didn't name her father's estate specifically, but it described the structure. Multi-billion-dollar holdings, irrevocable trusts, beneficiaries who couldn't access principal until age 25, and the legal loopholes that didn't exist but that desperate people thought they could exploit. Harold's team cross-referenced the publication date with her ex-husband's search history, subpoenaed through his internet provider after Harold filed a motion claiming fraud. The searches were damning. Can a parent control a child's trust fund? Guardian rights to manage inheritance. How to petition for custody of a minor with assets. All of them dated within days of the article's release. "He's not trying to be a father," Harold said, sliding the printed search history across his desk. "He's trying to be a trustee." She stared at the list, felt her stomach turn. Can he actually do that? No. The trust is airtight. But he doesn't know that. Or he's gambling that a judge won't understand the structure and will grant him some level of financial oversight as Naomi's custodial parent. Would a judge do that? Not if they see this first. Harold opened another folder. Inside was a document she didn't recognize at first. Then she saw the signature at the bottom. Her ex-husband's. What is this? A settlement offer. Your father's attorney sent it 18 months ago, before your father died, offering your ex-husband $50,000 to terminate his parental rights permanently. She blinked. I didn't know about this. Your father didn't want you to. He wanted to see what your ex-husband would do. What did he do? Harold flipped to the next page. A response letter. Short. Dismissive. Declined. I have rights to my daughter that aren't for sale. That was his official response, Harold said. But 3 weeks later, he sent an unofficial email to the attorney. We recovered it during discovery. He turned his laptop around. The email was blunt. 50,000 is insulting, and you think that's fair? I'm her father. I deserve more than that. She read it twice. Her hand shook. He rejected the offer because it wasn't enough, Harold said quietly. Not because he wanted to be in Naomi's life, because he thought he could get more. The room felt smaller. There's one more thing, Harold added. He pulled out a USB drive, the same one from the lockbox. Your father recorded a conversation with your ex-husband, not the hospital visit, a phone call, 2 weeks before he died. Why didn't you show me this before? Because I wanted you to see everything else first. I wanted you to understand the pattern before you heard his voice. You pressed play. The audio was clear. Her father's voice. Weak but steady. Her ex-husband's voice. Impatient. I need to know what happens to the money when you're gone. It's protected. Protected how? In a way you'll never touch. A pause. That's not fair. I'm her father. You're a man who abandoned his child. There's a difference. The recording ended. Harold closed the laptop. This is admissible. One-party consent state. Legally recorded. And it proves exactly what this case is really about. She sat back in her chair, felt the weight of it settle. Her father hadn't just prepared a defense. He documented intent. And now she had everything she needed to show a judge exactly who was standing across from her in that courtroom. The courtroom was smaller than she expected. No jury box. No gallery packed with reporters. Just a hearing room with fluorescent lights, a tired-looking bailiff, and a judge who'd already reviewed the filings before anyone walked in. Her ex-husband sat at the petitioner's table with his attorney. Confident. Composed. Rehearsed. Vanessa sat in the back row, dressed conservatively, hair pulled back, playing the part of the concerned observer. She sat at the respondent's table with Harold, silent, calm, waiting. The judge entered. A woman in her 50s with reading glasses and an expression that suggested she'd heard every excuse, every lie, every desperate argument family court had to offer. Let's begin, Judge Carver said. Mr. Brennan, I see you filed a response. We have, Your Honor, and we'd like to address the emergency motion first. Proceed. Harold stood, didn't raise his voice, didn't perform, just laid out facts. The petitioner claims multiple custody exchanges occurred during which he observed the respondent's instability. We've subpoenaed hospital visitor logs, security footage, and credit card records. There were no exchanges. The petitioner visited his dying father-in-law 3 times. He did not see his daughter during any of those visits. He handed copies to the judge and opposing counsel. Furthermore, the witness who corroborated these exchanges, Ms. Vanessa Hartley, was not present during the time period she described. Travel records confirm she was out of state. Vanessa shifted in her seat. The opposing attorney stood. Your Honor, these are minor discrepancies in recollection. They're not discrepancies, Harold interrupted. They're fabrications, and we have evidence that proves it. He pulled out the next document, the rejected settlement offer, the email response, the recorded phone call. One by one, he presented them without commentary. Just let the judge read. Let her listen. Let the words speak for themselves. By the time the recording ended, the room had gone completely silent. Judge Carver looked at the petitioner. "Mr. Richardson, is this your voice on the recording?" He hesitated. "Yes, but did you tell the decedent that $50,000 was insulting and that you deserved more?" I was upset. "I didn't mean..." "Did you or did you not file this custody petition 3 weeks after a news article about your daughter's trust fund was published?" His attorney tried to intervene. "Your Honor, timing doesn't prove. It proves intent," Judge Carver said sharply. "And intent matters in family court." She turned to Vanessa. "Ms. Hartley, you're listed as a witness. Do you still plan to testify?" Vanessa looked at the petitioner's attorney, then at her ex-husband, then at the floor. "No, Your Honor." The judge closed the file in front of her. "The emergency motion is denied. Furthermore, I'm referring this case to the court's fraud investigation unit. Mr. Richardson, filing a custody petition in bad faith is a serious matter. If it's determined that you pursued this action primarily for financial gain, there will be consequences." She looked at Harold. "Does the respondent wish to pursue a restraining order or request supervised visitation protocols?" Harold glanced at her. She shook her head. "The respondent requests that Mr. Richardson's parental rights remain intact, but that all future visitation be scheduled through the court and supervised by a neutral third party." Judge Carver nodded. "Granted. We're adjourned." The gavel came down. Her ex-husband sat frozen. Vanessa left the courtroom without looking back. And for the first time in weeks, she felt like she could breathe. But the relief didn't last. Because 2 days later, the attacks began. The first accusation appeared online. An anonymous post on a local parenting forum. "Has anyone else noticed the woman on Birch Street who leaves her daughter in the car while she shops? I saw it twice last week. Someone should call CPS." She didn't see it at first, but other people did, and they shared it. Within 48 hours, the post had been screenshot and spread across 3 platforms. Comment piled up, some defending her, most condemning. "If this is true, she shouldn't have custody. Money doesn't make you a good parent. Someone needs to investigate this." Then came the photos, grainy, taken from a distance, but clear enough to look real. A woman who resembled her, a child in a car seat visible through a window, timestamps, location tags. None of it was real, but looked real enough. Harold called her the morning the photos went viral. "Don't panic. We're already tracing the IP addresses. This is Vanessa." "How do you know?" "Because the metadata on the photos shows they were altered. The timestamps don't match the weather reports for those days. And the car in the image isn't even yours." "Then why is everyone believing it?" "Because people want to believe it. You win a court case. You have money. You made someone look bad publicly. Now, they want to see you brought down." She sat on her couch, phone in hand, scrolling through comments from strangers who'd never met her but had already decided she was guilty. "What do I do?" "Nothing yet. Let them commit. Let them spread it. Let them go far enough that when we prove it's fake, the backlash hits them, not you. And if CPS actually investigates, then we cooperate fully. We show them the truth. And we document every second of it so we can use it later." She wanted to argue, wanted to fight back immediately. But her father's words echoed in her head. Let them overreach. Let them think they're winning. Then bury them with their own actions. So she stayed quiet. For 3 days, the accusation spread. Anonymous tips were called into Child Protective Services. 2 investigators showed up at her door, apologetic but obligated to follow up. She let them in, showed them everything, cooperated completely. They left within an hour, satisfied there was no basis for the claims. But the damage was done. Her neighbors looked at her differently. Parents at Naomi's preschool whispered. Invitations stopped coming. And then the media picked it up. Not major outlets, just local blogs, tabloid-style websites that thrived on controversy. Billionaire heiress under investigation for child endangerment. Trust fund mother accused of neglect. The headlines were designed to provoke, and they worked. Her phone rang constantly. Reporters requesting comment. Strangers sending hate mail. She ignored all of it until Harold called with a different kind of urgency. They're escalating. Vanessa just filed a formal complaint with the state, accusing you of exploiting Naomi's trust for personal gain. That's not even possible. I can't access the trust. I know, but the accusation is public now, and it's being investigated. She felt the walls closing in. So what do we do? Harold's voice was steady. Certain. We go public. We release everything. The recordings. The fake photos. The fraudulent tips. We hold a press conference, and we show the entire city exactly who's behind this. She hesitated. Going public meant exposure. Attention. Risk. But staying silent meant letting lies define her. Okay, she said finally. Let's do it. Because her father had taught her one more thing. The truth doesn't need to be loud. It just needs to be undeniable. If this were happening in your city, if someone you knew was being destroyed by lies while fighting to protect their child, wouldn't you want to know the truth early? Stay with us, because what happens next changes everything. The press conference was scheduled for 10 a.m. on a Thursday. Not at a courthouse, not a law office. At the community center on Birch Street, where Naomi attended preschool. The same street where anonymous posts claimed she'd left her daughter unattended. The same neighborhood where whispers had spread faster than truth. Harold had advised against it. Too personal, too confrontational. But that was exactly why she chose it. Because this wasn't about legal strategy anymore. It was about reclaiming a narrative that had been stolen from her. The room filled quickly. Local reporters, bloggers who'd amplified the accusations, parents from the preschool who'd stopped making eye contact in the parking lot. She stood at the podium with Harold beside her and a table stacked with documents in front of her. No prepared remarks, no emotional plea, just facts. She started with the photos. 3 days ago, images circulated online claiming to show me leaving my daughter unattended in a vehicle. These images were altered. The metadata confirms it. The timestamps don't match weather records for those dates. The car in the photo isn't mine. And the location tags were manually added after the images were created. She displayed the forensic analysis on a screen behind her. Clear, undeniable, technical. The IP address that uploaded these images traces back to a device registered to Vanessa Hartley, the same person who testified under oath during a custody hearing 2 weeks ago. Murmurs spread through the room. She continued. The anonymous tips called into Child Protective Services came from 3 separate burner phones, all purchased at the same electronics store, all on the same day, all using a credit card belonging to Ms. Hartley. She showed the receipts, the surveillance footage from a store, the call logs that matched the timing of the CPS complaints. This wasn't concern. It was coordination. A reporter raised her hand. Why would she do this? Because she lost in court. And when people lose in court, sometimes they try to win in public instead. She pulled out the next document, the custody petition, the financial analysis, the search history. 2 weeks ago, my ex-husband filed for emergency custody of our daughter. Not because he wanted to be a parent, because he wanted access to her inheritance. She let that settle. My father, who passed 5 years ago, anticipated this. He left recordings, financial documents, settlement offers that were rejected not because they were insufficient, but because they weren't high enough. She played the audio. The phone call where her ex-husband demanded to know about the money. The email where he called $50,000 insulting. The hospital conversation where he asked about life insurance while her father was dying. The room went silent. "This press conference isn't about revenge," she said quietly. "It's about clarity. Because when someone tries to destroy your reputation, they're counting on you staying quiet. They're counting on shame keeping you silent." She looked directly at the camera in the back. "I'm not staying quiet." She stepped back from the podium. Harold stepped forward. "We're announcing today the creation of the Birch Street Family Protection Initiative, funded by a private trust, designed to provide legal support, counseling, and emergency resources for families targeted by false accusations during custody disputes." The room shifted. This wasn't just a defense. It was a pivot. Initial funding, Harold continued, is $200 million. Services begin next month. Applications open today. The reporters erupted with questions. But she was already walking off the stage. Because her father had taught her something else. You don't win by defeating your enemies. You win by making them irrelevant. The Birch Street Initiative opened 6 weeks later. Not in a polished downtown office. In a renovated building 2 blocks from the preschool. Accessible, unpretentious, built for function, not appearance. The services were specific. Free legal representation for parents facing fraudulent custody claims. Emergency housing for families displaced during legal battles. Counseling for children caught in the middle. Financial literacy programs so people understood how to protect assets from exploitation. And a whistleblower hotline for anyone who witnessed false accusations being coordinated. The response was immediate. 43 families applied for assistance in the first week. By the end of the first month, that number was 212. Not all of them had money. Most didn't. But all of them had been targeted by someone who saw custody as leverage. Someone who thought children were access points instead of people. The initiative didn't advertise, didn't seek publicity. It just existed. Quiet, effective, funded sustainably. And as it grew, something else happened. The people who'd tried to destroy her simply faded. Vanessa left the state, moved back to Ohio, took a job in retail, declared bankruptcy for the second time. No dramatic arrest, no public humiliation, just irrelevance. Her ex-husband's name stopped appearing in searches, stopped showing up in social circles, stopped matching. He paid child support on time every month, never requested visitation, never tried to contact Naomi, because he'd learned something most people never do. Some mistakes don't get fixed. They just get lived with. 3 years after the press conference, the initiative had expanded to 4 cities, helped over 2,000 families, changed laws in 2 states, created a legal precedent that made fraudulent custody claims easier to prosecute. And none of it had her name on it. By design. Because her father had been clear about something else too. Real power doesn't need credit. It just needs permanence. She visited the original Birch Street location once a month. Not as a figurehead, just as someone who understood what it felt like to be targeted and needed to see that protection was still happening. One afternoon, a woman approached her in the waiting area. Early 30s, tired eyes, holding documents that looked too familiar. "You're her, aren't you?" the woman said quietly. She nodded. "Thank you. My ex filed for custody last week. Said I was unstable. Said I was a danger. Your people are helping me fight it." "Good." The woman hesitated. "Why did you do this? Build all this?" She thought about it. About her father's letter. about the lockbox, about the recordings that had saved her. Because no one should have to face this alone. The woman's eyes filled. You're saving lives. You know that, right? She didn't know how to respond to that. So she just squeezed the woman's hand and walked back outside, where Naomi was waiting in the car with Harold, doing homework in the back seat, completely unaware of how close she'd come to being used as a bargaining chip. That was the point. Naomi didn't need to know about the fight. She just needed to grow up safe, protected, free to be a child instead of financial instrument. Years passed. The initiative kept growing. Her ex-husband stayed distant. Vanessa remained gone. And the story that had once threatened to consume her became a footnote in a much larger narrative. Not about revenge, about infrastructure, about turning pain into protection, about proving that wealth without purpose is just noise. But wealth used intentionally, that changes everything. Subscribe if you believe impact matters more than punishment. Because the best response to people who try to destroy you isn't destruction. It's building something they can never touch. 7 years after her father died, she returned to the law office in Hartford. Same building, same attorney, same lockbox. Naomi was 10 now. Smart, observant, starting to ask questions about why they lived the way they did. Why they didn't show off. Why they didn't talk about money. Why her mother worked at a nonprofit instead of living off investments. She didn't have all the answers yet, but she would. Harold met her in the same conference room where this had all started. You wanted to see the lockbox again, he said. I did. He placed it on the table between them. She opened it, pulled out her father's letter. The one she'd read 7 years ago when the custody fight began. Do not negotiate. Do not hesitate. Mercy belongs to healing, not to those who exploit it. She'd misunderstood it at first. Thought it meant be ruthless. Destroy them. Show no mercy in the way most people think of mercy. But now she understood. Her father hadn't been telling her to be cruel. He'd been telling her not to sacrifice herself, try and save people who were actively trying to harm her. Mercy wasn't about forgiving people who hadn't earned it. It was about protecting yourself without guilt. There's something else in here, Harold said quietly. He pulled out a second envelope, smaller, sealed with her father's handwriting. Open on Naomi's 10th birthday. She looked at the date. Tomorrow. He planned this, she said softly. He planned everything. She broke the seal. Inside was a letter addressed to Naomi, and a legal document. She read the letter first. My dearest Naomi, if you're reading this, you're 10 years old. Old enough to start understanding the world. Old enough to know that not everyone who smiles at you has your best interests at heart. Your mother has protected you from things you didn't need to see. Battles you didn't need to fight. People who tried to use you for reasons you couldn't possibly understand. She did this because I taught her something important. Preparation isn't about predicting danger. It's about making sure danger can't touch the people you love. The trust fund you'll inherit when you turn 25 isn't just money. It's freedom. Freedom to choose who you become without needing anyone's approval. Freedom to build something meaningful without fear. Your mother will teach you how to use it. I made sure of that. With all my love. Your grandfather. She folded the letter carefully, then looked at the legal document. It was an addendum to the trust. Instructions for a second initiative. One focused on education. Scholarships for children from fractured families. Mentorship programs for kids growing up in custody battles. Funded separately. Already structured. Waiting to be activated when Naomi turned 18. Her father had planned 8 years beyond his death. Had anticipated not just the custody fight, but what would come after. Had built layers of protection so deep that even now, years later, They were still unfolding. She looked at Harold. He knew. He always knew. She placed everything back in the lockbox, closed it, left it with Harold for safekeeping. Because some plans don't need to be rushed. They just need to be ready. That night, she sat with Naomi at the kitchen table. Homework spread out between them. A math worksheet, a book report on a story about bravery. "Mom," Naomi said, looking up from her work, "why do you help so many people?" She thought about how to answer. About her father. About the lockbox. About the battles Naomi would never have to fight because someone had fought them first. "Because someone helped me once," she said simply. "And I want to make sure other people get that same chance." Naomi nodded, went back to her homework. And in that moment, she understood what her father had really left behind. Not money, not even protection. Legacy. The kind that outlives conflict. The kind that turns pain into purpose. The kind that ensures the people who try to exploit you don't just lose. They become irrelevant. Because while they were focused on taking, someone else was focused on building. And building always wins. If you're not subscribing, tell us why in the comments. Because stories like this don't just entertain. They teach you what real power looks like when it's used the right way.
Hey there. Thank you so much for watching till the very end. We really appreciate your support. If you enjoyed this story, please don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and drop a comment below. We'd love to hear your thoughts. And guess what? The story doesn't end here. Click on the video right here on your screen to dive into another fascinating story. Trust me, you don't want to miss it. Once again, thanks for being a part of this amazing community. Until next time, stay curious and keep exploring stories that move you.